Greetings from my tub. I'm in here getting 5% cash back when I pay in 4 with PayPal. No fees, no interest. Make the most of your money this holiday with PayPal. Save the offer in the app.
Ends 12/31. See paypal.com/promo terms. Points can be redeemed for cash and more. Pay in 4 subject to terms and approval. PayPal link and MLS 910457.
I'm 32, juggling family, working full-time, and earning a bachelor's degree. At University of Phoenix, I earn career-relevant skills with every 5-week course. Skills I can use now, not just after graduation.
Earn skills in weeks, not years. Visit phoenix.edu.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Sooner Nation podcast. Go ahead and grab your coffee, grab your notes, do whatever you need to do, because you know what? Today we're going to do the thing that we all secretly love to argue about. It is Tuesday, which means in this episode, we're going to have the SEC power rankings, not standings, not hypothetical playoff brackets, not who used to be good 5 years ago, but who can play big boy SEC football right now, because we know what we're seeing happen is in this league, reputation only gets you to the front door. Execution gets you inside. Effort is great, but finishing is a grown man football thing. And right now, after week 10, we finally see some separation here in the conference rankings. Some teams still hunting championships, some teams hanging on, and a few, they're just trying to get through November without the fan base setting everything, including the message boards, on fire. So we're going to do like we've done in the past. We're going to go 16 to number 1, and that's going to set the tone for this week in the SEC. And the thing about it is, like, when you look around this conference, it's no longer about who screams the loudest on recruiting day. It's not about logos. It's not about hype videos or NFL, NIL flexes. The teams that rose this week are the teams that showed composure, physicality, and the ability to finish hostile games when the chaos hits. The ones that fell, well, they blinked, they flinched, they cracked under the lights. And in the SEC, you do not get style points for almost winning. If you did, Arkansas would be almost to the top. You don't get respect just for effort, and you absolutely don't get praised only for hanging around. What you do is you get rewarded for finishing. And look, some of y'all are going to hear today's rankings and you're going to get mad at me. I get it. The league is emotional. The league is tribal. It is a league that doesn't do, quote, neutral. And every week when we release these rankings, I hear this team is too low. This team is too high. I'm biased. When you look at our consensus rankings on the website, you guys are biased as a group, and you think the media is sleeping on this program and that program. And that's what makes SEC football the best product in sports, not just in college football. I believe it is the best product in all of sports because nobody's quiet, nobody's casual, and everyone cares. Let me tell you something. If you're listening to this podcast, you already know what I'm about to tell you, that this is a grown man football conference. Kentucky found that out. Tennessee fought like a heavyweight and still took body shots. Auburn loses, and they lose ugly. They fire Hugh Freeze. Ugly losses, ugly wins, they both count. Ole Miss, Texas, Georgia. These are teams that have shown maturity going into the stretch. And there's the Sooners, right? Oklahoma, they walked into a night game in Knoxville, 100,000 fans screaming, their backs against the wall, and they did not flinch. So say what you want, laugh at you want, but programs that come into the SEC and they don't fold in the road, you take notice of them. That's real football. And, no surprise here, but Texas A&M still sitting on the throne this week. And they didn't even have to play. And sometimes being able to hold your ground when everything else is happening in this conference, that's a sign of dominance on its own. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to rank number 16 through number 1, as we've done in the past. And we're going to call it like it is. And I'm not apologizing for it. If you don't think Oklahoma's high enough, if you think Oklahoma's too low, or what other school you don't think we give them enough praise, that's okay. That just means I didn't think they showed poise. I didn't think they showed execution with the game on the line, and I'm going to tell you about it. However, if your team showed grit, if your program is growing up in front of us, you're going to get that love too. And I'll say it again because it needs to be said. In our rankings, these are power rankings. We don't punish idle teams for being off, but we do reward performance, and we trust the tape for what we see on the field. So, as we judge who can win a championship right now, not in a fantasy world, not in a preseason preview type of way, but in real life on the field combat, who would win? Who could challenge for the SEC title? So we got rankings coming up. Someone's going to get humbled. Someone's going to get crowned. And somebody out there probably wearing orange or maroon or crimson, they're going to be screaming at me from their car before we get too far into it. So let's jump into this. Here we go. Number 16 through number 1. We're going to go through the full SEC with this week's power rankings. And keep in mind, again, power rankings, not standings. So what I said earlier, we don't punish idle teams. We reward performance, and we trust what we see on the field. And this is about who looks like they can play championship level SEC football right now. Obviously, that's not Arkansas. I've got Arkansas at number 16. And we're going to start at the bottom. And they're just stuck, man. The Hogs are just stuck. Look, they fight. They've been competitive. They were competitive again this week. But until you finish a game in this conference, you can't climb. Effort does not equal results. And eventually you have to cash in drives. You have to close out fourth quarters. You have to force someone else to break. And Arkansas hasn't done that. They stay at the bottom for me at number 16 this week. Number 15, Kentucky. And I don't say this lightly, but look, man, they bounced out of the basement. This is a team that has been stuck with rock bottom performance after performance. But yet you win 10-3. Some people might say in this league, a 10-3 score is like that's winning by losing. In the offense, man, they have evaporated. The identity of this team seems to be gone. The physical edge, not quite there, but yet they find a way to win. They find a way to stay relevant for just another week, and they keep Arkansas below them. At number 14, I got South Carolina. They didn't embarrass themselves, but they're clearly behind the middle tier of this conference. They're not quite enough in the playmaking department, not quite enough in consistency, but they are fighting. But what we said that in this conference, as well as most of college football, fight isn't enough. Not with the bar being where it is. At 13, we got Florida. Now, hear me out. They lost, but this was actually one of their best performances we've seen since maybe the Texas game. Competitive, physical. They played a rival, and they played a rival tough. And when we talk about the things that matters, that matters. Now, it doesn't move them anywhere, but it does stabilize them. And I can effectively say South Carolina, Kentucky, Arkansas are all far behind Florida. Because this is a team that, in the wake of their coaches firing, they come out, they take the field, they show signs of life. And they, by doing so, they stayed ahead of the teams who were behind them. And honestly, those teams are spiraling. Now, here's where things get interesting. Auburn at number 12. Ugly football. And I mean like capital UGLY. And we kind of hinted at Hugh Freeze last week, maybe circling the drain a little bit, and that's exactly what happened. They offensively, they just can't. I'm to the point where with this, I don't know that I feel sorry for Jackson Arnold as much as I feel sorry for the teams and the fan bases that believed in Jackson Arnold. And he gets benched, and then they only produce 3 points. It is not a survivable situation for Hugh Freeze. It was not survivable, but he hitched his wagon to a quarterback who got the offensive coordinator from his previous team fired. It was a bad call. It was a bad decision all around. And Auburn needed this win to survive, and they didn't. I guess Hugh Freeze needed this win to survive, and he didn't get it. You know, they can't win in the trenches offensively because the quarterback is just completely under duress. And you know, the defense can only hold on so long. So the Tigers, they're close to spiraling. I'm curious to see what's in their wake post Hugh Freeze. Number 11, we got the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Surviving a wild game. They put points up. They move up for me this week because they made plays late and they found a way. That's what separates the middle from the bottom of this league. Even when you don't win games, can you make plays? Can you show that you have life? And when chaos hits, somebody has to be an adult here, right? And I think Mississippi State is proving that they can do that. And they can do that, and they can be a threat. They can be dangerous. Are they going to be contenders? No, not at all. But are they going to be contenders in terms of upsetting somebody on any given Saturday? They're proving to be in that direction. Number 10, we got the Missouri Tigers. We got the Missouri Tigers. Again, idle. We don't punish teams for not playing. But you know, even if we did, I don't think any of the teams behind them did anything to justify jumping them. And, you know, sometimes the best thing you can do is not play. And you just watch the rest of the conference set itself on fire, and Missouri did that. Number 9, we got LSU. Same story. Idle, you're going into a post-coaching, era with Brian Kelly being fired, so the Tigers take the field this week. But they're staying steady for me at number 9. And here's the reason why. Now show me what you've got. If Brian Kelly was the problem, show me that you fixed the problem. Because here's the thing. I believe LSU is LSU. I believe they have explosive talent. I believe that they're good enough to beat almost anybody on the right day. Yeah, I do believe they're flawed enough to get beat on the wrong day as well. And now that's where coaching comes into play. So until we see what the product looks like next, I got the Tigers holding steady at number 9. And again, I don't think there's anything that's a give me about playing LSU. And for Oklahoma to close out their season against the Tigers, it bothers me a little bit. Makes me nervous. Number 8, we got the Tennessee Volunteers. And look, they lost to the Sooners, but I'm holding them steady at number 8 because they did play high-level football. This offense is incredible. And I believe Oklahoma has the best defense in all of the SEC, if not all of college football, particularly up front. And they pushed this Oklahoma defense deep into the fourth quarter, and they did look the part for most of the game. And I don't believe you get punished heavily or severely for losing a heavyweight fight by 6 points. I look at the teams, again, behind the Volunteers, and there's not a single one of them that I think at this point I would pick Tennessee to lose to. So I'm keeping them at number 8. Number 7, I've got Vanderbilt. Kind of a weekly talking point for Vanderbilt. Big time road environment at Texas. Competitive showing, just a little bit too little too late type situation. So yeah, they lost. But I think when people look at this team and they didn't fold, it's one of those things where you lose the game, but you earn respect. And the Commodores, they're a little bit in uncharted territory with their success. But you're seeing a team that didn't flinch when the world was collapsing around them. They didn't fold. And I think they look exactly like where I have them. A mid-tier SEC football team. So number 7 again for the Commodores. And here we go, Oklahoma at number 6. Look, that was on Saturday night in Knoxville. That was a grown man road win. You don't survive Neyland Stadium at night with softness in your DNA. And Oklahoma proved they belong in this conference. Defense, special teams, power run game, late game composure. That's SEC football, and that was all of those things define Oklahoma's win on Saturday night. It's not a situation where they needed style points. They needed a backbone, and they had it. So I've got the Sooners locked at 6, but listen, they are knocking, and I might say very loudly knocking on the door of the top 5. We'll see what happens on the other side of their bye week. So moving into top 5. I've got at number 5, and this is again where people are going to start maybe having some problems with my rankings. Number 5, I've got Ole Miss. I think quietly, Lane Kiffin has one of the most complete teams in the league. Again, they take care of business, and they do it with maturity. They do it with balance, and I think they're having fun. They're having fun doing what they do, but don't confuse that fun with not being physical. I've used the phrase a couple of times, grown-up football, right? This is a grown-up football team. You don't just hope that Ole Miss can win anymore. You trust them, and that's a new thing for them at Oxford. And here's the deal. When you look at their schedule, no one's beating them unless there is some sort of crazy anomaly out there. Ole Miss is going to go to the conference championship game, I believe. Now, here's at number 4. And this is where I get criticized every week. But I've got Texas at number 4. Yeah, they almost let one slip away against Vanderbilt, but guess what? They didn't. And that's my argument. No one is going to confuse me for a guy who loves Texas. I am not that dude. I don't wear orange. I don't like orange. I don't do it. But look, that doesn't mean we can't call this team what it is. It doesn't mean we can't call a spade a spade. And you can't punish a team for almost losing. You reward a team for finding a way to win. And Texas has done that. Great teams survive scare games. They do it on the road. They do it in their own stadium. They don't flinch. They don't panic. And they make winning plays either early, in the middle, or late, or all 3 phases. Championship programs do that. Do I think Texas is going to win the conference? No, I do not. Do I think Texas is going to go the rest of the way undefeated? No, I do not. I think there's probably 2 losses on the schedule for the Longhorns. But until something like that happens, I can't. I can't move them lower than where I have them. Get Alabama at number 3. Not a lot to say about the Tide other than I think they're elite. I'm keeping them in the top 3. They're still a challenger. And they could very well win this conference. Here's more controversy. I've got Georgia at number 2. And they go into the rivalry game. They go into a hostile environment. Things get uncomfortable. Momentum swings go back and forth. And yet the Bulldogs are able to stabilize things and shut the door late. That's the muscle memory of a champion. And I know I've said a lot that I don't punish teams for being idle. But man, I am in love with this Georgia team, probably unhealthy. And so I'm putting them ahead of Alabama, a team that that Alabama has beaten. But Georgia's either going to prove me right or prove me wrong. And we'll see what happens. And yeah, number 1, Texas A&M. The Aggies stay right where they are. They were idle. But look, they earned the spot. They earned to be where they are. And nobody behind them did anything strong enough to rip away the top spot from Texas A&M. Sometimes staying number 1 means not giving anyone a reason to knock you off. And that's what the Aggies have done. And again, you look at their schedule, they have the right to prove, they have the opportunity to prove that they are where they belong or that they're too high. So if you don't think A&M or Georgia or Alabama is ranked high enough, or if you think Texas is ranked too high, guess what? You still have the month of November, and it'll all play out. But as it is right now, on November 4th, 2025, that's how I see number 16 through number 1 in the power rankings. It is not conference standings. It is not playoff standings. It's how I see this conference shaking out this week if these teams were to play. Arkansas needs effort, but they need something more as well. Kentucky maybe found some hope, something to believe in. That middle tier kind of wading through the mud. The heavyweights staying heavy. But I think the most important thing that we learned this last weekend in college football with the SEC is that this conference is about maturity. Not about hype, not about logos, not about recruiting stars. It is about composure, physicality, execution, and the ability to close. And some teams grew into that this weekend. Oklahoma is one of them. Some teams shrank away from that this weekend. Let's stay with Tennessee and say that's one of them. But there are teams every week that take what we say a grown man step. And I don't think there was a team in the conference that did anything bigger than what Oklahoma did in Knoxville on Saturday night. So that's it. That's going to wrap it up for Power Rankings this week. Tell me who's too high. Tell me who's too low. Tell me who is pretending. And while you're at it, hit me up on that subscribe button and let me know, heartland-sports.com, how you would do the Power Rankings.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Tires matter. They're the only part of your vehicle that touches the road. Tread confidently with new tires from Tire Rack. Whether you're looking for expert recommendations or know exactly what you want, Tire Rack makes it easy. Fast, free shipping, free road hazard protection, convenient installation options, and the best selection of Kumho tires. Go to TireRack.com to see their Kumho test results, tire ratings, and reviews, and be sure to check out all the special offers. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
Hello, friends. Guess who? That's right. It is I, the Replacer. Once again, I've been called on so you can play the new Call of Duty, Black Ops 7, with 3 expansive modes, 18 multiplayer maps, and the tastiest zombie gameplay you've ever freaking seen.
Available November 14th. Pre-order Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Now, rated M for mature.
So this episode is going to be all about rankings. In the first segment, I gave you my power rankings. Now we're going to talk about a real set of rankings that actually matter to the grand scheme of things here in 2025. And that is the first set of college football playoff rankings of the season. They're officially out. And what we need to do is talk about Oklahoma, where they landed, what it means for the Sooners moving forward. And look, first of all, you know this. It's the first set of rankings, and they are never final. They are not a verdict. They are a snapshot, a pulse check, and sometimes, honestly, a spark to light a fire under teams and fan bases. And if you've been on Oklahoma social media in the last 24 hours, you know that the fire is lit after what happened in Knoxville on Saturday night. So let's lay the foundation here. Then we'll talk implications, and then we'll zoom forward into what matters next for the Sooners. So the top of the board is this. The committee's top 5 is Ohio State, undefeated, Indiana, number 2, undefeated, Texas A&M, number 3, undefeated. Then you've got Alabama at number 4 and Georgia at number 5. And let's take our first pause right here. Like Indiana at number 2. So that tells you that, in the era of NIL and so forth, that this is not the same college football universe that we've been used to. But the thing is that the Hoosiers, they've earned it. They've earned the right to be there. But man, that's a sentence I never thought I would say in college football. Now, basketball, a different story, but football, come on. Ohio State, that's not a surprise. Texas A&M, they've earned where they are. Alabama and Georgia, those brands live in the top 5 until someone knocks them out. And so the playoff picture right now, you got undefeated, you got nearly perfect teams, you got power brand teams stacking up big wins. So there's been nothing shocking that we've seen in the top 5. But where does Oklahoma land? Well, the Sooners come in at number 12 with a 7-2 record. So, not 10, not 8, not sneaking into the top 7, but they're just right there. They're on the borderline. They're peeking through the glass, looking into the party, if you will. They're close enough, to the fun to smell the barbecue, but still far enough back that you don't get to pick the songs that are played at the party. And I think this is what has stirred up some of the Oklahoma fan base a little bit with these rankings coming out, is that they're behind Notre Dame, who sits at number 10. And Oklahoma, they've got one more win than the Irish. They've got a ranked road win at Tennessee, fresh on the resume, but yet Notre Dame gets the nod there. And that always triggers a reaction, not just in Sooner Nation, but that would be for everybody. One part frustration, one part motivation, and one part we've seen this movie before. So what's the committee saying? They're saying this to Oklahoma. We see you, we respect you, but we don't think you are at that elite tier just yet. Now, there's no need to panic here. Obviously, there's no parade going down Lindsay Street either. The Sooners, they're in the very thick of the conversation, which is all we asked for. We wanted them to be in the conversation. And that's where they are. But they're still on the path where they got to prove it. And honestly, that's, everybody outside of Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M are on that prove it path, if we're being truthful. And that's exactly where you want this Oklahoma program to be in just their second year of SEC play. That's where we should expect them to be. Because the truth is, there's just really no world in where you jump leagues, have to reboot your identity to the extent that Oklahoma did. Look at the schedule that they played, and then you just walk into a top 4 positioning out of the gate. Being number 12, I think, is a sign of respect, but also I look at it as a challenge. Let's talk resume here for just a second. Oklahoma, most recently, they've got the SEC marquee win on the road with the victory over Tennessee last Saturday. They're sitting at 7 wins on the season. They've found their running game. 3 weeks in a row, they've had a 100-yard rusher. And then this defense. We've talked so much about the defense. They are proven dominant, proven legitimate, proven elite. But with all of that, they still have 2 losses on the season. They've had a couple of uneven outings early in the season. They've got an offense that's still evolving. And so I look at this number 12 ranking, and I see this. I see the committee saying, we like you, but show us more. What I mean is that they're treating Oklahoma as a team that's rising, but not one that has arrived. And I like where they are. I mean, you win out, you're definitely in. You win 2 out of 3, you're probably holding serve right here in this conversation. And again, what we're talking about, remember how bad this team was just a year ago. This time a year ago, we're questioning, will they even be bowl eligible? Now you fast forward to early November, and you're in the conversation for a playoff berth. That's not bad. That's not a bad place to be. And here's what Oklahoma's got going that Notre Dame and some of the others ahead of them, they don't really have right now. And that is the momentum. They're coming off of a big-time emotional win in Knoxville. They're running the football finally with authority. They have a quarterback who has the propensity to deliver game-winning drives, and he did it in Knoxville in a hostile stadium. They look like a program finding its second half of the season identity, which is exactly where you want to peak. That's when you want to peak. And if this was a power rankings conversation like we had in the first part of this conversation, instead of a resume conversation, I mean, look, Oklahoma would be probably in the top 10. But there is no margin. I mean, in the real world, here we go, I'm using my good English again, there's no margin for error. You sit on 2 losses, you got very little to no wiggle room. When you look at the strength of this schedule, I think one more loss, it doesn't send you into like playoff oblivion, but you're going to need help. You got to have help. 2 losses and you're done. The playoff dream is over. And so if you're Oklahoma, you have to look at these final 3 games coming out of your bye as elimination mode football. And you know this program, you've been around this program, you know the fan base, you're a part of the fan base. It's not necessarily a scary place to be because Oklahoma historically plays its best when the margins tighten up, when the stakes begin to rise, when they feel counted out. That's just enough to make them dangerous. It's just enough to push them over the edge. And so this ranking at number 12, it's not a punishment, it's a challenge. And Oklahoma can climb. They may even climb next week without playing. But they're in striking distance. And what they need to do to remain so, they got to win. Obviously, you got to win out. But you got a big opportunity in Tuscaloosa coming up. You got to have convincing performances. And then what you really want is you want chaos in those teams above you. And fortunately, college football chaos is about as reliable as the Waffle House at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know you're getting something unpredictable, right? There's going to be losses above Oklahoma. There's going to be movement. There's going to be a handful of teams in front of the Sooners that are going to knock each other out. But the path into the top 10 and higher, it's not easy, but it's also not a fantasy world. And so if you're an Oklahoma fan, here's how you want to root, right? You want to root for like chalk in the SEC. Accept Oklahoma and whoever faces the team in front of them, right? That's what you want. You want to root for Ohio State and Texas A&M to keep winning because their staying top tier helps Oklahoma's strength of schedule when you look at, the conference, particularly with Texas A&M being in the same conference with the Sooners. That just, with Ohio State, that makes the Big Ten look good. With Texas A&M, that makes the SEC look good. And you want people focusing only on those 2 conferences. And then you got to root against, you want chaos. You don't want chaos that benefits teams like Notre Dame, Oregon, Penn State, or anybody in that, I don't know why I threw Penn State in there. They're just done, right? But anybody in that 6 to 11 range. And most importantly, I mean, again, it goes without saying, win your games. Do like you did in Knoxville. Don't worry about style points. The style will come if the wins stack. You go out and you win 3 in a row, then you've got every bit that you need in terms of style. This league gives you opportunity every week. And so I think Oklahoma needs to look at this as motivation, not disrespect. Let me say this clearly. I want you to know where I stand on this. Ranked number 12 in November, not a knock. It is a sign of respect. It's we believe in your direction, but again, we need more proof. If you're a coach, you'll love this because you can motivate your guys. If you're a player, you feed off of this. If you're a fan, you get to have meaningful November football. And when's the last time in Norman that we've had meaning November football? Certainly wasn't in 2024. So it's been a minute since Oklahoma fans could point to the calendar, circle the month of November and say, hey, we're playing for something. So this is the moment that we as fans, as Sooner Nation, we need to enjoy this moment. So here's my closing thoughts. Oklahoma at number 12 in the first college football playoff rankings. It tells us three things. It tells us that this program's rebuild is working. We wanted to see improvement in 2025. We're seeing improvement in 2025. It shows us that this team is dangerous and they are ascending. You don't believe me? Ask Josh Heupel. But it also shows us that nothing is guaranteed. Everything is still possible for Oklahoma. Nothing is guaranteed. And if you're a fan of the Sooners, the energy you need to take into these last 3 weeks is, hey, man, we're here. We belong. Now let's go take it. Because the doubters are going to doubt. They're always going to be there. But let the rankings motivate. Let the games decide the truth. Because at the end of the day, the crimson and green helmet, it carries the weight. And this team is learning how to win in the SEC. And the rest of the country, they are taking notice. So there it is. This is the episode about rankings. You've got my SEC power rankings. You've got the first set of college football playoff rankings. And now we got a bye week to go in and just kind of be stress-free as we enjoy college football the way it was intended to be. So definitely we're going to keep an eye on this moving forward. Do me a favor. This is the part where I get to ask you, if you listen to the show, please give us a like. Please give us a subscription. Thanks so much for being a part of Sooner Nation. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll be back later on to talk about it.